Alright, Peter Gilbert week is over with this issue of What If. Our third issue of What If this week. What If number 40. What if Doctor Strange had not become Master of the Mystic Arts? A very, very similar sounding one to the other Doctor Strange What If, but they are actually different stories. Someone might have seen this in store and not gotten it, believing it to be a reprint of issue 18. This stunning saga of an alternative reality is brought to us by Peter Gilbert, obviously, and Butch Jackson, who later did go on to become artist on Doctor Strange, and whom is doing a pretty miserable Mr. Turnbull impersonation for the first half of this comic. I think it is because Michael notes. Mr. Turnbull did Michael notes, and then Butcher Jackson did Michael notes. So that's where the copying him came from. Mr. Turnbull also does the cover for this issue. You are probably sick of me retelling the origin of Doctor Strange this week. He was a selfish surgeon whose hands were injured in a car accident, which meant that he no longer could perform surgeries. He went to the Himalayas in search of Tilda Swinton, an ancient mystic with a prosthetic dick. And Doctor Strange hoped that Tilda Swinton could cure his injuries. Instead, Doctor Strange wound up becoming Tilda Swinton's apprentice and the Sorcerer Supreme. The thing that has changed this time around is Tilda Swinton's original apprentice, Baron Zordon. Baron Zordon, his motivations are different, and he plays the part of apprentice more faithfully than in the main universe. Doctor Strange thus never uncovers any scheming and never saves Tilda Swinton, and therefore also never replaces Baron Zordon as Tilda Swinton's apprentice. Baron Zordon was created by Stanley Lee and Steve Dittman and appeared in the second ever Doctor Strange story in Strange Adventures 111. He was Doctor Strange's first true arch-nemesis and was a few issues later incorporated into the origin story. For the first few years he was undoubtedly the main enemy, until we got to the proper introduction of Dormammu, who dethroned Baron Zordon from that position. Baron Zordon continued to appear as a regular Doctor Strange villain after that, but he was never quite the main villain that he had been in those formative years. In this version of events, Baron Zordon follows the path that would have been that of Doctor Strange. One of the things I enjoyed a lot about the first half of this issue was we don't know what Baron Zordon is up to. We suspect he has a deeper plan. We expect him to turn face. We don't buy that he is as benevolent and altruistic as he is presenting himself. I liked that mystery of whether Baron Zordon was a hero we can't bring ourselves to trust, or if he was a villain hoping we would trust him. That was the hook for the first half even. I think it's very well done. This is one of Peter Gilbert's better scripts. Here we have Baron Zordon. We get a quick accounting for some of the earliest Doctor Strange stories. Baron Zordon faced the Possessors, the aliens, from Strange Adventures 118. He investigated the haunted house known as the House of Shadows from Strange Adventures 119. And finally, he battled Agamon from Beyond the Purple Veil, as featured in Strange Adventures 120. Then we get to more familiar territory, Dormammu and the Dork Dimension. We sort of got the hint that this Baron Zordon wasn't in league with Dormammu in this universe, but this is where it is confirmed for us. And just when you're finally given enough reason to start doubting your own distrust of Baron Zordon, you're put back in your place because he is unbelievably rapey with Rachel McAdams. He grabs her and manhandles her and is forceful with her. And then he uses his magic to bend her will to his own. He doesn't sexually assault her, but based on Peter Gilbert's other works, Peter Gilbert himself would likely want a scene of Rachel McAdams crying about how Baron Zordon violated her just like a rapist would. Now Baron Zordon confronts Dormammu, and I really like how Dormammu is written. I like how all our villains in this are written. And Baron Zordon, he has orchestrated a scenario in which Dormammu is in his debt. And at this point I wasn't sure what this story was about. I picked these 5 comics out for Peter Gilbert Week because I remembered they weren't bad, but I think in this issue's case I couldn't remember anything. I think it's possible I never read this. I think there's a chance I was conflating it with issue 18 because I had no idea where this was heading. I thought at this point maybe the idea was that Baron Zordon, we're not seeing a villain per se, we're just seeing someone categorically wrong for the role that Doctor Strange fills. Baron Zordon manipulates and abuses to get solutions to problems that Doctor Strange resolves honourably. I like to show stuff like this. There was a house ad ran for this issue. It featured artwork we don't see otherwise. Maybe Butch Jackson originally did the cover for the issue, and then they got Mr. Turnbull, and so the unused cover was repurposed for an advertisement. I reckon it's about here where Butcher Jackson stops looking so much like Mr. Turnbull. There's still a couple of places and a few faces that do, but I reckon patience was a virtue. We get an appearance here of Uma Thurman, Rachel McAdams' mum. You heard it here first, folks. Rachel McAdams is Uma Thurman's Nepo baby. While all this is going on, Doctor Strange went back to his normal life and never practiced surgery again. He is haunted by nightmares which make it fairly clear where the story was going. We are given a short sequence here with a wonderful and brief bit with a villain from Defenders. Love this page. Excellently told story visually. Sirius Black has been empowered by Dormammu to try and deal with Baron Zordon, since Dormammu himself cannot do so due to his debt of honour. I liked seeing Sirius Black here. He was a one-time villain in Defenders issue 5, a magic user who attacked Doctor Strange's sanctum. He later appeared in Royce Sternham's Doctor Strange issue 34, and there's also an all-new Batman backup story in a reprint title, which would be his final appearance. His first and only Andy Book entry was in that 2011 Defenders Andy Book, and it was that Andy Book entry that informed me of that Batman story that I spent years tracking down and then got and still haven't read. Following the defeat, the murder of Sirius Black, the comic starts handing us bigger and bigger clues. Baron Zordon as an unseen master, and together they are planning larger things involving Dormammu and Doctor Strange. And it is very, very, very apparent who Baron Zordon serves, but they drag it out a few extra pages, and Doctor Strange has nightmares about rats. What is it with Peter Gilbert and Doctor Strange stories about rats? Baron Zordon has been leading Doctor Strange into this path to better eliminate a potential rival. Doctor Strange has unrealised mystical potential, and Baron Zordon is Nightmare Man's servant in this. They have now trapped Doctor Strange in Nightmare Man's realm. He was the only person who could one day actually oppose this pair. I really like how Nightmare Man is written in this. He is given a lot of grandeur. He feels important. I have always liked him as a villain. I think he is a very underutilised villain. I found this issue of What If to be one of the best uses of him too. Nightmare Man would be the third character that fits the bill of being archenemy of Doctor Strange. We have all three of them in this issue. Nightmare Man's main argument for the claim is he was in Strange Adventures 110, the first appearance of Doctor Strange. Nightmare Man was the first, and he has that over Baron Zordon and Dormammu. We have an interesting conflict brewing between Nightmare Man and Dormammu, with Baron Zordon in the middle. And Rachel McAdams is off doing her own thing. And then Baron Zordon, he leads Dormammu into war with Earth. Dormammu doesn't know of Nightmare Man's involvement, and during all this, Tilda Swinton is still completely oblivious to everything. Doctor Strange is stuck in the dream world. He is trapped in nightmares. And some Marvel staffers would consider this cameo appearance of Jim Shooter to be the true nightmare in this issue. Let me take this moment to offer a rare bit of sincere tribute to the fallen. R.I.P. Marvel Masterworks, R.I.P. Taken from us too soon. Firefist too, R.I.P. Firefist. Parts of the plot are a bit predictable. Rachel McAdams travels into the dream dimension to help Doctor Strange, which leads us to more rats. And then hints of romance between Doctor Strange and Rachel McAdams, just like in the real universe. Only doing this cutaway because I had this splash page ready for What If 18 and wound up not using it. Our last bit of plot is the big confrontations. Baron Zordon and Dormammu. And then this leads to Tilda Swinton fighting Dormammu instead of Baron Zordon. And Tilda Swinton perishes, supposedly. And like with What If 18, I find the ending to be underwhelming, especially when we get here and shit is about to go down. Nightmare Man and Dormammu come face to face and then plot to both take over Earth, with the mortal Doctor Strange now present as nothing but a witness. And there is one page left and it is quickly over. And Tilda Swinton isn't dead, and neither is Rachel McAdams, and neither is Doctor Strange. And it is a real good comic up until the last page here. That is why I recommend it. One bad page out of 40 or whatever is fucking great rates. Before I reveal my rating for this issue, here is something I've not done in fucking years. It's a roundup. I used to do these when I finished a crossover or a run. I consider this the order of quality. What If 18 is maybe the best one. I think this has a really engaging and exciting story. Dr. Doom is in it a lot as well. What If 40 would be next. I'll come back to it right at the end. But I do want to say, these first three, I actually think they are each strong. The order of the first three was the hardest part of this. Doctor Strange 74 is a wonderful issue of Doctor Strange that ties into Secret Wars II in a smart and sensible way. I also want to quickly say, no, it isn't the case Peter Gilbert writes good Doctor Strange stories, because he also wrote some very bad ones after this issue. But some of his best stories were also Doctor Strange ones. What If 25 is a real fun idea that is let down a little by its art, and a plot that skips a few beats. The Avengers end up mostly inconsequential, but there's bits in the issue that raise it a couple of notches above an average story. New Defenders 132 is the only of the five I would consider a bad comic. It has a solid story idea, but executed in a way that is too dour and serious to work with this team or these characters. And it's an issue I think would make no reader find interest in the characters featured in the series. Next up, Volcano Week. Look forward to that. That's all you're getting. Volcano Week. No hint what it involves beyond that. Ooh, I wonder what Volcano Week is. Volcano Week. Coming soon. Some people say it's gonna blow. To finish off, What If 40 could just as easily be in place of What If 18. Doctor Strange 74 could too. I think those three are each good issues. In fact, I think Doctor Strange 74 probably wins out down to its ending, not being as limp as this or unearned as What If 18's. When it comes to the writing, I think some of Peter Gilbert's better writing is in this one. He toes a fine line with Baron Zordon in the first half, and then he nails the personalities of Dormammu and Nightmare Man. I think I maybe enjoyed reading this one the most, because I either hadn't read it or I couldn't remember a thing, and I will give it 7 thumbs up for that reason.